There were no limits. Oh God, there were no limits. Welcome to Legends, a series that delves into the lore within Horizon Zero Dawn, a world with an abundance of powerful and moving history begging to be explored. Recently, I've received a number of comments from the community concerning the inner workings of the Faro Swarm. As the player, we have all come to know that 3 signature capabilities made the Chariot line impossible to defeat during the 21st century. Today, we will expand upon those key functions and why they proved so difficult to overcome. Beginning with what most consider should have been the first failsafe that could have prevented the apocalypse, remote deactivation. In-game, we hear the term unhackable used to describe the swarm numerous times, but this is a tad misleading, being that they were eventually hacked. However, for those involved in combating the robots during Operation Enduring Victory, they might as well have been unhackable, but only due to the time it would take to generate the deactivation codes to shut down the entire swarm. Being that the subfunction Minerva was designed and built during this time, the technology existed to bring the plague to an end, but unfortunately not fast enough to save the world. The type of security used within the swarm, polyphasic entangled waveforms, may give us a hint as to what those wanting to hack the Chariot line would have been up against. Poly derives from the Greek polis, or many. Phasic derives from the word phase, as defined as a stage in a process of change. Entangled meaning to wrap or twist together, and finally, waveforms, indicating the shape of a wave and its characteristics such as frequency and amplitude. All told, this paints a picture of a multi-layered security system that is constantly in flux, interwoven in a way that is incomprehensibly complex and most likely is never the same twice. This must mean that Minerva not only had to generate the codes necessary, but also predict a point in where that specific code would actually equate to a successful deactivation. This also means that it must have had to find some kind of pattern in this sea of seemingly infinite and randomized series of outcomes to make the former possible at all. Ultimately, this process could and would be done. But even with the most advanced code-cracking technologies known to man, tasked with the singular goal of brute-forcing deactivation on a sole security system, it would still take nearly 50 years for the swarm to be deactivated, thus making the robots for the people of the 21st century, for all intensive purposes, unhackable. Next would be the possibility of outlasting the machines. However, with their capability of biomass conversion technology, this was not an option. Though we know this to be the case, many have asked me what was the exact process the swarm used to convert biomass into fuel. Unlike the acquisition class machines designed by Gaia, physically consuming and converting organic matter into blaze themselves, clues within the lore point towards the use of nanotechnology. In the data point titled Phantom Limbs, the testimony from an Enduring Victory soldier mentions what he calls nanohaze, systematically stripping his flesh and bone, ultimately removing his legs. A rather gruesome visual, but does give us a glimpse into the Faro biomass conversion process. We also see this occur for a very brief moment in time during the mission The Looming Shadow, when the Khopesh in the Sacred Land is awoken and consumes the leaves of a neighboring tree to begin refueling itself once again. This nanotechnology may be what is actively at work in the corrupted zones found within the game, as it actively damages Aloy and seems to infect the surrounding area, a lingering byproduct of the Scarab's presence. Lastly is the Chariot line's ability of self-replication, the capability that ensured the swarm's inevitable victory. I've often heard the comments essentially saying, how could we, with primitive weapons such as bows and small explosives, combat the Chariot line, while Operation Enduring Victory, with weapons of mass destruction at their disposal, could not? It's in this self-replication that the 21st century defenses were undone. It's important to understand that Enduring Victory forces weren't having a particularly difficult time destroying machines, some testimonies even describing them as slaughtering Faro bots during the conflict. The nail in the coffin for human defenses was, we simply couldn't kill them fast enough. These machines' greatest strength wasn't necessarily in their durability, but in their unceasing and unending offensives. Even if temporarily routed, each attack would be more calculated than the last as they continued to learn from each engagement. Fortunately for those in the 31st century, our battle with a relatively minute fraction of the swarm was kept very short, not allowing the bots to adjust strategy accordingly. Additionally, we apparently thwarted their mass awakening before Horus models could awaken and create more, taking away yet another pivotal advantage of the swarm. Regrettably, the specifics of this particular capability still remains more mysterious than the others. The most we gather as to how this process works comes from the data point interview Brad Andak, a former Faro employee and team member on this specific chariot line ability.
You previously worked for Faro Automated Systems.
On the chariot line self-replication routines? I came here thinking this was a rendition. When your people took me, I thought, about time. I've been trying to swallow the guilt every day since...
Would you like to take a moment?
No, I really hoped Zero Dawn was a way to undo it all. My work. And I'm sorry to say I was ever proud of it, but Ted could really sell a concept, and in the labs, in the light of creation, that first test run, when you saw they understood their own structures, could rebuild themselves from memory and light, there were no limits. God, there were no limits.
Though this explains the breakthroughs FAS made to instill the necessary degree of artificial intelligence for self-replication in the chariot line, it unfortunately leaves the question of raw resource acquisition up to speculation. This because, unlike its fellow chariot line models, the one responsible for continued manufacturing, the Horus, is one we never see in action. What is evident is that these machines, due to their complexity, must require a vast array of exotic materials to produce. From silicon for microchips, cellulose and nitric acid to produce modern gunpowder, and much more, all must be prevalent elements to produce a single functioning bot. Though at this time we can't confirm the exact process, perhaps clues may lie in how Zero Dawn retrieves the necessary components for its machine fabrication. Specifically, the Rockbreaker. With its unparalleled drilling capabilities, the Rockbreaker is able to bring valuable resources to the surface for use in the terraforming system that would be unattainable to any other machine. ZD must also require a multitude of different materials in order to function, and it seems this deep mining is an integral part of that process. Though we may have never seen a functioning Horus, we are all too familiar with its immense power and the type of destruction it can leave in its wake. As we see atop the Grave Horde and Allmother Mountain, the Horus is more than capable of ripping into the earth and piercing deep into solid rock. Perhaps this not only serves to enhance its combat capabilities, but also allows the mobile manufacturing facility to gather the necessary materials to build its complementary machines from the ground up, literally. We also have testimony within the data point Banda C incident of a Horus using biomass conversion technology, meaning it also has access to the nanotech of its fellow chariot line models, potentially serving not only to strip organic matter, but also the necessary elements from excavated minerals to fulfill its role in producing more machines. Hopefully in the sequel, we will not only be able to witness an operational Metal Devil, but obviously bring one down ourselves. Though much of this technology mentioned before may seem far-fetched to some, even in our present day, machines are being developed with these capabilities as their focus. In the UK, what they call a soft robot is in development that can potentially clean the ocean's pollutants indefinitely by converting biomass into energy. As far as autonomous machines of war, many world powers such as the US and China are dedicating massive amounts of funds and manpower to ensure they are on the cutting edge of AI and national defense. And as these systems continue to become more sophisticated, it only seems natural for their security protocols to advance far beyond what we know now to protect these advancements. In another 50 years, who knows what our world with this kind of technology at its forefront will look like? But luckily, the wait for the next installment of our fiery-haired protagonist adventures in the 31st century, relatively, is just around the corner. And that brings our journey to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated, and if you really like what we're doing at the channel, come join our community and hit that subscribe button. Also consider supporting the channel on Patreon to help us create new series and to supply more quality content just like this. Check out the link in the description. The topic for today's video came from one of you, our awesome subscribers, so if you have a great idea or an interesting question that could lead to our next episode, let us know in the comments down below. And until next time, thanks for watching and keep questing.